He had a suit that looked like from 1970 and this awful tie that was stained and not tied correctly. And I didn't know about these guys just because of the presentation. He was a very intelligent man, and it turns out he's a fantastic manager. But I remember thinking, I'm not sure if this is on the top of my list. But as I went through the third round interviews and visited their headquarters, and this was a company called American Management Systems, or AMS. They're no longer on the market. They were acquired by another company. But back then, they're quite big in telecommunications and government work and whatnot. And they were based around Washington, D.C. And the thing that impressed me about them so much was every interview I had, and I think that day I had 6 or 7 interviews with employees, and I said, can this company get me to Europe? And everyone had said, oh, well, I just came back. I was there for 3 years. Or, of course, I'm going there next month for a 2-year contract. So it was very encouraging. So I kind of gambled. And took a chance and went with AMS as opposed to all these fancy Ernst & Youngs and everybody else, which I did an internship at the previous summer. So I jumped aboard AMS, and I found myself in the telecommunications industry, which I had no experience in. And they issued me a laptop and said, learn this piece of software. Put me in a room with another guy. No training, just a manual, a paper manual and a piece of software. And it was quite a complicated thing, and I had no experience in it. So me and this other bloke sit there for about 2 weeks trying to learn this software. And I remember going back to my girlfriend at the time. She had just gotten a job in finance. We were living just inside Washington, D.C., and I was working just outside the Beltway, as they call it, in Virginia. And I came home, and I opened a bottle of wine and walked out into the garden and started crying. I said, how? I've done these relatively interesting jobs up to this point, and all of a sudden I was a data analyst creating database designs for a telecoms customer care system. And I don't mean to offend anybody that's in that business. It is complex, it's difficult, and it's absolutely boring if you're from the creative, wanting to be in the creative industries. All of a sudden, I find myself designing database tables.
Yeah, someone has to do it.
For a computer system that runs millions and millions of records per day. And I'm like,
yeah, that has to be optimized and has to be run smoothly.
How did I get here? And I remember telling my wife or my girlfriend at the time, what mistake did I make to get to this point in my life?
So what kind of database was it? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Was it DB2 or something like that?
It wasn't DB2. It could have been DB2 or maybe it was an Oracle database at the time. Mm-hmm. I actually don't remember, but there's typical drawing ERD diagrams and trying to figure out.
But it was SQL, I guess.
It was SQL, and so it was. Yeah. But the point is, it bored me to death.
It was boring. Okay.
Now, the interesting thing is I wanted to go to Europe, and I was stuck in the States. So I'm stuck in the States, and I'm stuck in the database, basically. So I get to a client. They put me on a client, and this is very different world back then. We had what were called internet service providers, ISPs. And the telecoms industry in the U.S. had been deregulated at the point because it used to be a monopoly. And everybody and his brother was setting up an ISP where you could connect to the internet with a couple of servers in their...
So this was before Comcast and...
Yes, exactly. Uh-huh. This is, Joe Bloggs with a couple of servers setting up with a telephone line and used to dial in. Right? And you would get charged a subscription. And then the market consolidated. So I worked as a consultant to a company that was buying 9 of these ISPs and crunching them together into one company. And so I got put in a senior consultant role, even though I was a junior consultant and had no experience. It was quite nice for them because they make a good spread on the margin by billing me. And I was supposed to consolidate all these systems from 9 different companies. This naive first-time consultant. And I walked out and met with these people, and nobody would tell me anything because they knew exactly what's going to happen. They were going to lose their jobs. I would, consolidate, and 90% of them would leave, right? And the one lucky guy would have his job left administering these systems or a team. So nobody would share anything with me. So I was in the position for the first time in my life. I'm like, I have to make this up. I have to deliver something. So I created this crazy hypothetical ERD diagram and presented it to the management team. And just by chance, there was a sales guy from London there in the same company. And he had come over with a client that was an American company, but based in London, called Colt Telecom. That's another story. But they were impressed with my presentation, even though it was fictional. Management decided to execute it. And the sales guy said to me, if you ever need a job, come on over to London. I'll give you one like that. And I said, why? And he said, because you explained something very, very technical in a way that management could understand it. And what I didn't realize at the time, which I did later, was there was my creative storytelling. That I didn't think of it at the time, but that was this little key talent that I sort of discovered.
So then you moved to London.
Then I actually, what happened was I got a job offer in Spain with the same company because I spoke Spanish and I knew this piece of god awful software, and they had a position working with Vodafone Spain, but my boss blocked it because he was billing me at this very high rate, and he told HR, no, you can't let this guy go. I'm making too much money off of him, which was awful. So I came back and I was quite disappointed because the promise was I'd get to go to Europe, and here was an opportunity staring me in the face, and I get blocked. So I went home, once again cried to my girlfriend at the time, and she says, well, I don't know about you, but I'm moving to London because I just got a job offer today. So I said, interesting. Interesting. So the next day I went back into HR, and I said, now she went from the girlfriend to the fiance in less than 24 hours,
nice.
At least fictionally. And I said, my fiance is moving. I'm moving too. So you can either let me have a post with your company in London, or I'm just leaving. Now, again, this was a time when it was quite easy to get a job, and there was this high
so you
demand.
weren't so worried.
So it was not like
job.
today. It's probably a little bit more leverage. So off I went, and I contacted this sales guy that had been there, and Eamon Kearns was his name, and he said, come abroad. And so we got to London, and I was the data analyst. But what happened there was the reason he wanted me to come was this storytelling. And the problem he had was most of the salespeople could not describe the technical complexity of what we're doing. Now, this is before what we have now, cloud computing solutions and package solutions. We actually built these giant systems from scratch, and very few people could explain to the customer the degree of technical complexity.